Proverbs chapter 24 and verse 3 says, "Through wisdom is a house built, and by understanding it is established, and by knowledge shall the chambers be filled with all precious and pleasant riches." Hi, my name is Charles Vance. I'm along with Chief Strategist Terry Sacka, and you are watching The Wealth Transfer. Hi, Terry.
Good evening,
Good
Charles.
to see you.
How are you? Good evening, everyone. Welcome to The Wealth Transfer. This evening, we got some really good stuff, biblical principles and global economics that will help you with your family, your retirement, and future outlook in the kingdom. And hi, Charles. What he just said with knowledge, I tell you, this is so important to understand. There is so much more in what the Word gives us than we can ever imagine. And we're talking about that. How many of us, Charles was saying in church, he asked, does God give us the ability, how'd you put that, to be wealthy and then healthy?
Well, I've asked people before, I said, does God give us the ability to be in control of things in our life? And people said, yeah. I says, does he give you the power to be healthy? Oh, yeah. Does he give you the power to get saved? You have the decision. He's already made it available. You have the decision, so you have the power to get born again. And the list goes on and on. Everybody says, oh, yeah. I said, why are you not healthy, wealthy, saved? Because you have the power. God's given us the power to do it. So it's in the knowledge and then the wisdom of that knowledge. The wisdom's the ability to use knowledge.
The ability to use knowledge. Yeah. And that goes back to that Proverbs 16:3, where do all your work unto the Lord, and he will make your thoughts established. So if we have to do all your work unto the Lord, now what does that really mean? I think a lot of us think we are, but what does it really mean to do all your work unto the Lord? That means get up in the morning and do prayers and pray and read. That means to walk out the walk the best you can. And when you make mistakes, if you get angry at a brother or a sister, repent and really try to find common ground. I mean, really walk out what God said to walk out, and then watch how he brings the thoughts established into your soul, into your life. And
all of that goes back to the leaders, the Jewish leaders came to Jesus and said, so tell us, what's the greatest commandment? He said, what do you say it is? And he said, well, it says to love the Lord your God with all your heart, your mind, your soul, your strength, love your neighbor as yourself. That word love is agape. It means to have a deliberate attitude of your will to do good. That's the way God loves us, and He told us to love one another in the same way. So when we love God that way, have a deliberate attitude of our will to do good toward God and good toward everyone we come into contact with, we live what's called the golden rule. We live the will of God. We live the nature of God when we begin to do that.
And then we get that wisdom, discernment coming in.
Absolutely. And then the blessings of the Lord begin to flow into our life.
There's no doubt they can. And I know that goes back, not that this is kind of part of what we're saying, but it really does even go back to the fact that whatever your church is, are you a good steward of your manager? Or a good manager and good steward of what God's giving you? Do you tithe into your church? Do you offer? Do you help people? Do you financially help people? And the only reason I say that is think about what God says. The only time that I recognize, Charles, in the Bible where God says, test me in, and he would rebuke the devourer for us. Now, spiritual warfare is very real. It's not flesh and blood, but powers and principalities. And if we want God to rebuke the devourer in our life, we better at least be sowing into the kingdom. Now, it's to a church, or you help people, love on people, give, basically. Time if you don't have money. Help people, just give, and let God then rebuke the devourer. Then let the wisdom and revelation pour into your soul, into your mind, and watch then how the blessings can come.
Some people might not know this, but you're not a preacher.
I'm a businessman. Although I use the power of that word in my business, so don't think we don't.
Probably in the true sense of the word, you are a preacher. The word preach means to proclaim something, and you're a preacher of the gospel.
All right, I'll take it.
I pastor a church full time, and am in the business world full time as well. Believe that's Revelation 1 and 6 is what all of us are supposed to be doing to some degree.
Kings and priests?
Kings and priests.
Good
We're
deal.
supposed to be ruling over natural things and spiritual things.
Good.
You own Cornerstone Asset Metals. You've been in the financial world for over 10 years.
Yes.
Tell us some of your the credits that you have.
Yeah, I was in, I finally decided to go for it, went to the financial world with A.G. Edwards. I became a financial advisor with a Series 7, 63, 65, helped manage retirement accounts, estates and such. I then got into a Series 3 of commodities, so I really understood the dynamic of the financial system, but I also understood the dynamic of the financial system and realized I've got to get away from this. I became an accredited asset management specialist, and really my main role is a strategist and analyst at Cornerstone. I do understand the systems of the world, which I also understand as Lucifer's, but I also understand God give us dominion of the earth, which we are very blessed to be involved in refining, right at the grain of silver from the ground in the crucible, to the mint, to the depository, to the front door of those that request it mailed home. So we do mint the purest form of what God said was money in the Bible, which is silver, and we do believe and help educate those in the body of Christ on proper protection, preservation, and hard, tangible assets. We just happen to like gold and silver because it's most liquid.
Now you will help people that are not in the body of Christ. Am I correct?
Oh, sure, but you know, if we're praying and we're whipping out so much stuff, though, if you're not,
Now, it
you
kind
may
of
not.
sounded like that you only help people that are in the body of
Oh,
Christ.
no. We'll help anyone, but we're so serious about the word, and
Okay,
we literally pray for people on the phone. I mean, we're so serious, and I'm not shy. I mean, I'm going to whip out the scriptures if it relates to a subject matter. And if you're not Christian, you may not like that, depending on what's operating in your soul. But you better believe I'll talk to you. I'll talk to anyone. Absolutely.
So that's the cool thing about owning your own company.
I guess so, huh?
You can run it the way you want to.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're just here to proclaim the beautiful, beautiful gift we've been given, the grace, the ability to do things we couldn't do on our own, that comes through the power of the Spirit of God in us that Jesus gave us. So,
Terry, last couple of weeks, last week not so much, but the week before, we started talking about M1, M2. Is that what we were talking about?
yeah, we were talking about the velocity of money. We were talking about how people were hoarding the money.
Let's talk about velocity for a minute. When you say that, I mean, it almost sounds like a news term that runs
Well,
past
think
people
about
real
velocity. Think about getting in a Mustang and then hitting the gas. You know, velocity, you move quick. When we hoard cash and currency, as we are doing at unprecedented levels, if you haven't seen the programs, go into our archives. We do have at cornerstoneassetmetals.com or christiangoldsilver.com. We do have the Wealth Transfer Archive in the upper right corner link. Takes you to a library of these programs, and they're categorized by subject matter. Every single week, the new program is posted on Friday. So I do encourage those folks that do watch this program, pass on the information to those that don't have satellite and family and friends that need to know this information, and guide them to some of those programs, let them watch them, because it's available now. And remember, the best education or the best investment we can make is in education. So
the velocity of money is how quickly it's moving from one place to the other.
yes, in the economy. Now,
so like if you and I were buying and selling with one another,
yeah.
if we were doing it a bunch and in big quantities, the velocity of that money would be quick. It would be fast.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had, now the money system has been moving along since 1913. We showed last week how it's just kind of coming along, and then we just shot straight up in money printing. We have printed trillions and trillions of dollars here over the last 5 years, and I'm contending we are going to come to a reckoning soon. I don't care what the talking heads say. We're going to get over this. No nation in history has. Every fiat currency has gone to zero. This is fiat, meaning it's fake. It's not backed up by a hard, tangible asset. All through history, these currencies, fiats, were always backed up by a hard asset, silver or gold. Matter of fact, the dollar definition, grains of silver. The definition of money in the Noah Webster dictionary back in the day when the Constitution was written, grains of silver, grains of gold. So yes, Congress has a right to coin money, but they meant with this standard. Why? This is finite. This is infinite. This has value because there's only so much of it. This I could just print and print, 24 hours a day. So there's something to say about that.
As long as people will use it for a medium of exchange,
yes,
and it keeps moving,
yes,
the system will work.
And that's where the velocity comes in. As money's moving around, as you go to your work, you get paid, you go to your accountants, they pay taxes to the government spends the money, they build roads, bridges, then you buy clothes makers, and it goes on and on, the money cycles, everything's fine. Since 2008, though, the velocity of money has crashed so bad, banks, government, well, not government, but banks and people have been hoarding the money to themselves. They're holding on to it. And I'm contending, this is unprecedented. Since 1960, we have not seen the velocity of money this low, meaning so much currency is being held. There is trillions in the banking system, and there's trillions in individual hands holding on to it. What makes me nervous is a lot of Christians are holding on to a lot of this, starting to get back in the stock market now that it's completely peaked out. Be careful. But they're hoarding this, and they think this is safe. This is an abomination. And I'm telling you, it's Proverbs, 11:1, I believe. Dishonest weight and measures is an abomination. Honest scales are a delight to the Lord. The reason this is a dishonest weight and measure is they can print it into infinity. This is an honest scale because there's only so much of it. You see, it's very interesting.
Now, when we begin to talk about the velocity of money and the money that is available, the money that, let me ask you this real quick, because this keeps coming up in my mind,
okay,
is quantitative easing, QE.
That's what we've been seeing going.
We've talked about that a couple of months back. We were talking about it pretty regular.
Yeah.
But that's when the federal government gives the banking system the right to print more money and put it in the system.
Yeah.
And it inflates the system, actually. It puts, you start slicing the pie thinner and thinner,
absolutely.
basically.
We're so thin right now, people would be amazed.
Now, a lot of that money was there was supposed to be some bailout money that went to banks and so forth. And it had to have obviously come through some of that quantitative easing,
absolutely,
that money printing.
Yes.
They were supposed to have released it and made money easier to get at the banks so
yes,
that people like you and me could go to the banks and say, I want to borrow some money for a project, to do this, to do that, to whatever. And it didn't happen.
It didn't happen, and the banks held on to it. There's like about almost probably $4 trillion, but I know $3 trillion for sure, in reserve at the Federal Reserve that banks are putting there. They're parking it there. And really the reason they're doing that is most banks, most of them, they're insolvent. They've lent out, when you put in $1 in the bank, they lend out 20 on paper. They don't have your dollar. If you only knew that you're a third in line to be repaid when a bank collapses, so when the velocity of money, if we don't get moving,
it's got to keep moving.
If it doesn't keep moving, if we get a change in our currency status, banks collapse, you're third in line. And don't think I won't go into that, but don't think that the FDIC is there for you, because if you knew that background, you would realize it's not.
They're owned and operated by the Federal Reserve
Yeah, there's only
banking
$25 billion in the FDIC, and there's literally hundreds of trillions of derivatives these banks own.
Pennies on the dollar.
Pennies. You will get pennies back on the dollar, and that's very important to know that.
You just mentioned that if somebody put 1 in, that they could loan 20 out on paper.
Yes.
That's fractional banking.
Yeah.
That's where they only have a fraction of it on deposit that they're actually loaning on paper. So if everybody runs to the bank and says, I want my money.
It's not there.
It's not there.
Matter of fact, they have restrictions now. There are banks that now are restricting people's ability to do it. There are banks now that, by the way, are asking questions if you want to take currency out. And just for those that aren't aware, come July 1st, there's a new law that all international banks will be required to report any dollar transactions to the IRS. So if an American tries to put dollars in a foreign bank to exchange for a foreign currency, the IRS will be notified now. That law is really dramatic. It goes into effect July 1st. What that really is called is a capital control, meaning the government's trying to control their people's ability to move money freely around the world. And typically when a country has capital controls, it means something's coming. And so for those that have asked us to protect IRAs, 401ks, currency, over too much currency in the bank, I highly encourage you to get information. Register on this website, give us a call. We will send out this package. This package is loaded with data, economic data, data for IRAs, how simple and easy it is to roll over into a precious metals IRA, data about the dollar and what's going to happen to the dollar in the future, of conditions happening with China and Brazil and Russia and India. You really want to know that. So for those that have those assets, get this package. It's free. We're just here to educate. Go anywhere, just do something, get involved, because if you're overly loaded in the currency of the world and you're not diversified in what God's money is, and this event takes place, you're going to be really sorry when half your entire life savings evaporates during this kind of transition. So just be wise, be diversified, and get a hold of something that no one else has third party over. Remember, this is tangible. We put our hands on it. That's why it's so important.
We've been talking about, I don't know if you finished with these charts that you had on the M.
Yeah, let me show this.
M2,
yeah,
is that what you're calling
Yeah,
it?
let's do that. This is, let's go into that one. It is, this one.
Explain what it is again when you're talking about, because we've got new folks watching every week.
Yeah, what we want to do is get into the velocity of money. Basically, the velocity of money shows amount of currency that is being hoarded by banks and individuals. When the velocity of money is down, that means people are holding on to it. They're not putting it into the economy. That's why we have staggering unemployment. And we're going to get into the fourth chart we'll show you today is unbelievable unemployment.
Now that almost sounds like weird to think that just because I hold on to my money, there would be people unemployed.
Yeah, because we're such a deficit spending nation. And if you go into the history of money that we did, it was an extraordinary series. It was lengthy, but it was extraordinary. If you understood back to 600 BC till now, every deficit spending nation, what happens is they spend more money than they make every year, and it's like a gigantic building, a skyscraper. Sooner or later, it will collapse on the economy and the society. It has to. It's done it all through history. Because we're a deficit spending nation, we must have currency moving in and out of the system constantly, or we collapse because we have too much debt and we need to constantly print money and move money around to kind of keep the boat afloat. When people are holding on to it, it causes deflation. And I hate to say, we're in a serious deflation, meaning prices start drifting down, even though we're in inflation, if you notice. It's a really weird time. Deflation in the banking system, inflation in food and gas and other items. And all I know is this, 60s, these were equal. They both bought you 5 gallons of gas. You take this to the bank, they would give you silver. Today, I sell my silver, I can buy 5 gallons of gas, if not 6 right now. And think about that. That's the same as it was 40 years ago. I take this to buy gas. I can't even buy 1 quart of gas. So for retirement, what would you want in your wallet? A quart of gas or 5-6 gallons of gas? And the reason this is the case, this is losing value and has lost most of it since it's been printed, and since we printed trillions recently, is losing tremendous value. This only goes up because this goes down. As Charles always tells you, it's like this. That's why. And so in your retirement, if you're holding this, bonds, stocks, the inflation is eating you alive and you don't even realize it. This will have a reckoning. It is so cheap right now, because I'll tell you, they're manipulating this on paper in the markets. 160 ounces sold on paper, derivatives, for every 1 physical ounce that's in the vault. There's a reckoning coming.
Who's doing that?
The banking systems
are doing it. The banking system is doing it.
Yeah, but the reckoning is coming. It will. And then this price discovery will show its stars. And I'm telling you this right now, in August 14th, I believe it is, 100-year history and precedence is coming to an end, called the silver fixing price. They're no longer going to fix this price anymore in London like they used to, which means it's going to free float a little better. And I have a feeling you're going to see some fireworks starting this September to next September in the price of this hard asset, because there's not much of it. And understand, it's vital because our retirements, our IRAs, 401ks, our inheritances, CD, currency that we're storing for our future, is in currency that is slated to really take a hit when this happens. So for those that have those instruments, IRAs, you want to learn how to roll over into 401ks, IRAs, into this, give us a call, register on this website. We'll send this package that's loaded with economic data, data on the dollar, what's coming, why it's going to happen, and how simply and easy it is to roll over your IRA into a precious metals IRA. No tax consequence, because just a simple rollover. And of course, for those that want to have it sent home, we actually send this stuff home directly, insured, anonymously, that no one will know it's coming, and you can have it stored at home as well, but just have some, it's that important.
Now, why is this velocity of money so important again? And can you show us on the chart?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's show chart number 1 of this series, and let's kind of get into what that really means, or what that represents. And then I think that'll really be a good way to bring that about.
Does he have that number on 1?
Yeah, he has it on 1.
Fred. Who is Fred?
Is a chart keeper. Now look at that. That is the velocity of the M2 money stock. Now what's really important about this is, if you notice, since 1960 on the left, we have never been this low. Now the gray shades there are known as recessions. Typically in a recession, people hold money, right? Because they're losing their job, getting hours cut. So that's very typical. If you notice, in the gray areas is when the money goes down. That line goes down, right? But here's what's not good. Since 2008, we went through that big recession, which I call depression almost, and look how much it dropped. But what's scarier, we're not technically, as they say, in recession, and it's still dropping. Meaning people in banks are hoarding more money than ever in the history of the dollar monetary system. And I'm going to tell you why in a minute, because you're going to see what that means. Because if they're holding on to that money and the economy's not moving, something's got to give, because TV tells us everything's getting fine. That's not what that says.
So if the money is being held, if people are just hoarding it, or if the banking system or the government, whoever has it, I don't think the government can hold it.
No, the government's not. Government's printing the money.
Yeah, right.
The banks and the individuals are hoarding it.
Right.
Corporations are hoarding too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're holding on to things probably with the idea that it's a safe haven for them to
it's
have.
Better to put it at risk, because there's so much uncertainty. Right now, there is so much policy, regulation, global uncertainty, Russia, China energy deals, petro deals, dollar reserve status deals. Corporations and individuals are terrified, especially corporations. Some corporations like Apple and others, they're so wealthy in cash because they're not putting it to risk until we can get some footing here. Look at image number 2. This is going to help bring this narrative along a little bit and what this really means. That's the velocity of the M1. Remember, M2 and M1. M1 is actual cash. Look at that big gray area. That was the big Great Depression we had, or Great Recession, they say. Look at how after the recession they said was over, how severely the M1 money supply collapsed in velocity. That means every institution, corporation, bank, and individual is hoarding everything. And mind you, this is lower than any time in history of our monetary system. You've got to gravitate and understand what this means. That low number right there, you can take that off. That low number is so important because one of two things are happening. One, our economic system collapses, and those holding on to currency are going to be in a lot of trouble. They better get busy. Or they somehow fake it, turn it around, and that money starts going into businesses, starts getting loaned. The economy picks back up again. I think that's what they're kind of counting on, by the way. You know, I mean, I'm from a different perspective prophetically that we're going to have a bigger change, but let's say it doesn't happen. Let's say what we're saying about something happening bad isn't going to happen. But the velocity of that money, if you see that chart, starts going in, will cause dynamic inflation, almost to the tune of hyper if we don't monitor it, which my guess is they'll monitor pretty good. But it will be serious inflation.
And again, that inflation is going to do what?
Food prices higher, gas prices dramatically higher, clothing prices higher, everything you do and service you have more expensive, but more importantly, this is going to be worth a lot less, And this is going to be worth extraordinary more.
Now,
I don't know if that's the right phrase, extraordinary more, but it's just going to be so significantly higher. And that's why velocity money is important to understand, because if it shoots up back from that low point, this $100, $140 an ounce easy, this in a lot of trouble. Inflation is going to be all rampant.
Are people going to be able to be deceived by the activity, the velocity of money?
Yes, absolutely.
Will it deceive them to some degree?
Great question, Charles, and yes. That activity will make you think everything's okay when we will be on the verge of a collapse.
But the prices are going to be going up at that time.
Prices are going to skyrocket, and that velocity is going to cause such a hyper fake balloon burst that it's going to pop after that activity happens, and everything's done.
So it could almost be like the housing pop again.
It's
like
exactly what's going to happen.
Okay.
Exactly.
But it could happen in a bunch of different areas.
All over the economy. I think it's going to happen everywhere simultaneously. I think it's going to be an event that's going to be like overnight. So I'm a little bit more aggressive on this. Let's go to image number 3 on this. Watch how this is going through. Now remember, those 2 images show you the hoarding of currency. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the real unemployment rate. This is known as shadow stats. Shadow statistics show real data. Our government only puts in a fraction of information when they give you the numbers. The numbers they're giving you is not real. They omit. Remember I said the age group 25 to 45, 60 million men are not working. They're not part of the unemployment rate. Shadow stats, the blue line is the shadow stat, meaning that is the absolute real number when you add all factors up. Gray is what's broadcasted and forecasted, which is kind of like half of the information. Red is what the government's telling you it is. You notice the government's telling you our unemployment's only about 6%? That's your red number. Look at the blue number. Unemployment rate now is at a staggering 23%, 24%. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a depression, and they're not letting you know that. That's a very real and truthful graph right there.
Now, Terry, they're keeping these numbers like this.
Obviously, I understand, yeah.
They're doing this, though, by just looking at many times unemployment, people that are applying for unemployment.
Underemployment, they're not counting that, and people doing part-time work instead of full-time work.
And some people have completely quit hunting for jobs. Some people are
They're not counted in that either.
They're on people that are in entitlement. They're not on it.
Right.
SSI, all of those people are removed from that unemployment figure that the government's using.
Now that is so important, because if that many people are out of work, but yet everything looks okay on TV, all this cash is sitting back, we're getting ready to see something, and I contend, this is really what I contend, Charles, we are going to see something that none of us have seen yet, and we will never see again in the history of our lives. Economically, globally, I think there's a big global shift taking place. And all I know is this is in a serious position. Why are you putting your faith and trust in this when we should be having it in this? I just contend, get information, register on our website, give us a call. We'll send it out to you. It's for your IRAs and 401ks, get them protected. We'll pick this up again next week. God bless you, and make Jesus Christ the center of your life. He'll come.
Yeah, tell somebody about the broadcast. We're on at the same time every week. We'll see you next week for the Wealth Transfer.